step forward.
Welcome to the Now Podcast, greatest podcast in the world, in the multiverse, universe, and all that good stuff. I'm one of your co-hosts, C Diesel. To my left, I have Mr. Lelouch E. To the right of me, I have Prince of the Comics, Ethan Murphy. Nice to see you guys.
the pronunciations and the directions, everything is a little bit off. A little bit off. I love it.
Just to wake everybody up, keep them on their toes. Today, we're going to be discussing the last 4 episodes of Batman Unburied. We've done two videos. Yeah. 2, 4. Yeah. We've done 2 videos up to this point. And so far for us, the series has been pretty decent. And we just wanted to go ahead and just wrap this one up because it's like the last 4, knock them out the way. Okay. So for me, the series ended pretty good for me. We'll get into ratings, I guess, at the end of this one. I'll say the ratings at the end. But it's pretty decent. They did some things at the start I feel like was a lot better than the latter half, obviously. Like, a lot of the talent was top-notch. A lot of the production was top-notch. I just felt there was some creative writing things that could have taken more liberties to make it stand out a bit more. How do you guys feel about like the last 4 episodes and how it wrapped up? And we'll start with Otis, yeah.
I mean, my complaints that I had on episode 1 of it, I still have by the end. This is just more of the same. Like, it's more Batman content. Like, you know, the whodunit part in the beginning was amusing, but it just got extremely predictable. Like, if you're familiar with Batman content, you know how this ends. Like, it's nothing new. Like it almost feels like a waste because like I knew what was going to happen. Like it's like, give me something new, give me something outside the scope, give me something I didn't expect, and I got none of that from this series. So, and in that aspect, I'm disappointed. But like, I mean, from the quality of the conversations between, like, you know, Gordon and Enigma, from the quality of conversations with the Poison Ivy, as you get into more of her backstory. Mm-hmm. I mean, the direct interactions between Lance Reddick and Winston Duke, Bruce and his father and mother, like, there was quality notes there, but it just compiled into a story that has been told so many times from Batman. Like, all right, big bad has to do something in the city, and Batman is incapacitated. He has to get help from his usual gallery of people that help him, and then it's solved. It's formulaic.
Yeah,
Mr. King of the Comics.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle between the two of y'all. Because it was still a fun enough ride, enjoyable enough production, but and I don't regret listening to it at all. But it definitely it's bogged down by some problems. It definitely, if you're a Batman fan, there's some notes you're gonna pick up on. But that's the world of Batman. That's kind of what you're going there for on some level, is to have a Batman story. And it's, for what it's worth, they did find some creative ways to explore familiar characters. Even everything from as far as having Barbara Gordon be Detective Barbara Gordon. There is no Detective Barbara Gordon in the comic books or any other iteration, just in this. The way they had Poison Ivy's origin. Poison Ivy's origin in this story actually was a little different from how it was originally in the comic books, and that every other iteration, the buddy cop angle between Barbara Gordon and Edward Nashton, as they call him, hasn't been explored before in comics or in any other iteration. So they even though we are very much in familiar territory, they definitely extended beyond it a bit. And there's one big thing, we'll get into the details of it later on in the last episode, where you actually get a chance to have Bruce Wayne talk to his parents and what that would be like. Regardless of how well it was done or not done, it's still interesting to see that. What would it be like? It doesn't happen that often in the comics. We actually get the chance to talk to them and hear their honest take on how he is as a grown-up. So.
All right.
Yeah, it depends on what take you're talking about, because there's some versions where Thomas Wayne is actually alive and he talks to Bruce. And
but he's written them letters before and other crisis and stories and everything. But it was, I guess, in this angle, it's as far as like my mom and the thing is, usually it's like his dad. Like, they don't care about his mom as much. But this actually had his mom and his dad like actually like, hey, we know you're a lone grown-ass man. We know what you're doing as a crime fighter. This is our take on it. We still love you, but yada. So.
Well, since you brought up that point, let's get into some of the highlights before we shit on this. I don't think we're not gonna shit on it, but before we bring up negative comments about it,
no. By the way, this is full spoilers for the last 4 episodes. So if you haven't
Just the last part of the series. We didn't
7,
spoil
8, 9, and 10. This is
All right, my bad. For me, I feel like probably my favorite, if not second favorite part of the series was the origin of Poison Ivy. To me, it was really reminiscent of if you guys played the Arkham games and if you collected the Arkham tape files.
Patient interview. Pamela Lillian Isley, November 12th, 11:33 a.m. Good morning, Pamela. How are you today?
Fine. Today is a special day.
What do you mean?
This is the anniversary of my new life. When I found my true self, my destiny.
From those games where you got to have an insight of like a therapist meeting of the inmates and a different doctor or maybe one of the prison guards there, getting to see that personalized look at characters that you normally wouldn't see a certain side of was interesting to me. And I really loved her dialogue and back and forth with Hugo Strange and seeing her origin and seeing that she wasn't just pure evil. She's a multifaceted character, that she has her motivations and why she's doing things that she's doing that may be perceived as evil. She's not just evil for evil's sake.
I mean, with Poison Ivy, has she ever been like 100% like pure evil? Like, I mean, from my knowledge, before she was like, initially she was an eco quote unquote terrorist.
yeah, she's an eco terrorist.
Like she wants the betterment of the planet. It's just what her means aren't necessarily always positive.
No, it's usually I want the betterment of the planet and I want the destruction more or less of the mankind. And like she kind of those two go hand in hand very much. Like I almost like she wants to sacrifice humanity for plant life.
And the thing I like about this one initially, she wasn't going that route to start with. It seemed like she was very much so being more proactive in a way that didn't involve murder of an entire or like genocide of people. When she was traveling to the Middle East to go see the plant and research it with her, the woman she loved and things of that nature. Which again, another thing that I really thought was cool that they were able to, again, whenever I see it happen, I kind of got to touch on a little bit when you can touch on a character's sexuality without making that the big crowning point of the story is that, okay, she's a character that does all these crazy, amazing things, but she so happens to be gay. And I thought
it wasn't her defining trait. It was just a part of her character.
And even their interactions seemed like a natural conversation. It wasn't like some weird shit to me.
Yeah, but that was interesting too. Like the idea that she couldn't touch people. They made that very clear. She could not touch anyone to her detriment. Which also kind of the motivation for her doing what she was doing was that she wanted to be able to touch her lover Alex, and she couldn't do that because of what her dad did to her. So it's a lot of it's kind of a tragic villain story in that too, which is interesting.
It's dope. Go ahead.
Like, there are so many actually good things about this series, but like the issue that I really have with is the fact that all those good things literally have nothing to do with Batman. So like, why make this bad?
Well, the thing is, we already know why it's Batman.
Yeah. It's the draw, it's the cash cow, it's the it is the known IP.
Yeah,
but again, like Batman was literally the weakest point of this entire series.
By far,
my personal opinion.
By far, but also with that, he was in it the least out of. It's like him and Alfred are probably in the least out of everyone because they actually have him missing for like episodes pass, and you do not hear Batman's voice at all. It also takes like 4 or 5 episodes where Batman shows up, and then after he shows up, he's still not around for a while because the episode is entirely dedicated to Poison Ivy's backstory. You don't hear anything about Batman at all. There's episodes dedicated to the buddy cop of Batgirl and Nashton, or Edward Nygma. So it is, for what it's worth, they tried to keep Batman on the peripheries. Do y'all ever remember that anime Assault on Arkham, where Batman's in it, but he's in the background. You're focusing on the Suicide Squad as they're doing this infantry in Arkham. It's kind of like that, where it's like Batman's there, sure, but it ain't about Batman really. It's not about Batman.
To me, that was, again, you guys don't like the series, but one of the reasons I enjoyed Gotham so much was because you didn't have the Deus Ex Machina of Batman like hovering over shit. Like when crazy shit was going to go down or a villain was doing something over the top, it was down to Jim Gordon or whoever, or even Bruce Wayne at that point in time, to figure stuff out without just having Batman do Batman shit to just save the day randomly. It was like there were consequences to actions more so.
Right.
So that's why I really enjoyed like the beginning part when it was like just a murderer who done it, or even when Ivy came in later on, I'm like, okay, Batman's just not going to do like Batman up with some wild gadget or mixed martial arts and just fuck people up random. Which you saw once he appeared, he was just fucking everybody up random as hell.
And to their credit,
and they had to use talking no jutsu.
Yeah. And to their credit, when they did use those abilities and stuff, the sound effects are pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. But I agree, it was interesting, Dev, like you said, when he wasn't around to see a world. It'd be fun to actually observe if there's a whole series dedicated just to the backstory of the interesting villains in the world of Gotham. Like almost if they call it like the Arkham Files, and you just hear essentially the backstories of the villains, essentially how they became villains, with the why they are the way they are.
Just like did Gotham and not make it terrible like after the first season.
That's a big ask. That's a big ask though. That's a huge.
Okay,
ask.
We're not about to get on that like that. All right, I'm not standing for that. Let's chill.
No, we might do that. But I do want you to understand her name is Fish Mooney. They named her Fish.
Yeah.
She's gone after like the first season or like the second season. Like they get like she's out of there. Like she's not. I think she makes an appearance later on, but like she's gone from the majority of the show.
It is, but do you think
is it actually a good thing when a series loses its biggest name early?
She was the biggest name though.
Who would you say?
Well, she's the biggest acting name, but as far as characters, there are bigger, better characters that came along.
Oh, of course, you get better characters.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Gordon.
I'm saying like, but the biggest name attached to the show is
is there a bigger star?
Yeah, the show got better when she left. That's just my opinion. I think the show got a lot better after she left.
She probably the show probably did. In all fairness, it couldn't have gotten worse. So it probably got better.
They literally had a point in time where they started aging up people. Like I don't think that's a good thing in a show that's supposed to be grounded.
When they did it, I know they did it at the end when they like changed the actors like completely. But for the majority of the show, like the actors kind of grew up in that, like throughout the run of the show.
Right?
Didn't they accelerate the age of a few people in that? If I'm not mistaken, like the later seasons, like I didn't really see
the only time I remember aging being ramped up was like literally the last episode where they like, which again I fuck with her heavy Cameron B. Condova, the girl that played Catwoman. They like took her out completely and put in like a new chick for the last episode, but then kept Bruce Wayne as the same actor.
That's weird.
And had him in his really trash.
They were the same age basically. Her and Catwoman.
Yeah,
they age her up, and he don't.
But he was in a bat suit though, so you really didn't see it. But that suit looked really shitty. It looked really bad.
The thing is, he's like what 18, 17 when he's in that bed. Maybe in that bed. So he looks like a kid. Probably oversized on him.
But bottom line, the more behind this is there's enough content in Gotham to make viable things that doesn't have to involve Batman, and I really think that this could have been one of them. This could have.
They have the comics like that. Yeah.
Like this, the way this started, it could have just been about some random doctor in Gotham that has to deal with something while Batman is away. Like if they would have stuck to that line, I would have been significantly more interested in how this ended.
Even saw it in like what Ethan brought up earlier, as far as like a X-Files type deal. Again, I'll bring it up again with Arkham Asylum. Like that, those games, one of the very few things in games where I've collected 100% of the collectibles was that game, because I wanted to hear how like the stories and how these characters thought and went about things. So if I had a whole series where it was just like backstories on these characters, it'd be fucking dope to me. I'd listen to that all day, probably multiple times, honestly.
Yeah, no, I would too. I think it would be interesting because the way they did, like Otis was saying earlier before we started the show, how well produced this podcast actually is, this radio play is. Hearing the backstory of Poison Ivy with her dad when she was growing up as a young girl, that story is interesting. Could you imagine if they did the same thing with, I know the Joker would be kind of weird, but if they did with other characters, like for example, they did it with a young Riddler, or if they did it with, even Bane or Killer Croc, especially. Killer Croc's story is crazy. It could be pretty engaging. I think it'd be pretty engaging. There's a show on HBO. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of it, called In Treatment, and they're just it's basically their half-hour therapy session between just two actors. It's a conversation. The whole thing is just a conversation. That's it. And that's kind of what this felt like. It's a kind of an engaging conversation between two people who do something like that really well.
All right, reminds me of that. It's like that. You remember before the new season of Euphoria came out, there was like a mini like episode where like Rue and her sponsor were talking. Exactly. That was like that. It was nothing but just them talking like on a therapy session. I really enjoyed that. Really did.
When you actually have solid writing and solid acting, it's great. Now, one thing I do want to hit real quick. Some of the writing in this was great. I love a lot of stuff between Barbara Gordon and Nash, and some of the writing was weird. Someone's like, okay, you're a bit off here. But there's a part like at the end when Bruce Wayne's like talking to Alfred, he's like, I love you. It's like, wait a minute. Is he drunk? Or he said, hi, what's going on? Is something wrong here? That would never happen. It felt like out of character and off and weird.
Well, I think, did you guys ever play the Telltale Batman series?
I played the first 3 chapters.
In that, like, he kind of like because all for him, I think he almost died in that series. So he talked about how much he loved him and appreciated him, and it didn't feel out of place because he just almost died like multiple times. So he kind of just took it for granted for a lot.
Maybe it's Winston Duke's performance. It didn't seem. You heard it. It didn't quite feel.
We've done a lot of the highlights. Let's start getting into the lowlights a little bit and what we did not like about the story going forward.
Right.
Obviously, Winston Duke is the biggest thing.
No, he's got to be specific. It's not Winston Duke in general. It's Winston Duke.
Did y'all hear the dog barking in the background?
Yeah, that's my background.
But no, to be specific, what Otis was talking about, it's the Winston. I like the Winston Duke as Bruce Wayne throughout the series. I did not like him as Batman. I wish we've talked about it a million times throughout the course of the series. I'd rather him just use the same voice as Bruce Wayne, but like slightly more intimidating, if that makes any sense. Like you have examples of it done well from almost like Kevin McHale, from Kevin Conroy. Like you can just copy that. Like I've seen actors talk about how they studied other media and content for a character to get ready for a role. Do that. It sounds like he just watched Batman Begins over and over again to figure out how he wanted to do that voice.
Right, or a horror movie. Like almost like he's trying to do Candyman on crack. It's a weird like, hey. It's wow.
He sounded like he was snarling. Like I could feel like the drool coming from his mouth, like as he was saying certain shit. It was like, bro, like
I think he did snarl sometimes.
A few levels, like go from Wolverine to human. I need you to be.
He was like, Candyman. He said, no, Mr. Todd, stop. That's not gonna work. It was y'all heard it. I am not wrong.
You're not wrong at all. It was just like, bruh, like
I want a soundboard so bad. I want a soundboard so I can have E snarl on a soundboard and just click that shit right in the socket of the show.
Oh my god! But I was like, oh, because there's a part where I was like, at the beginning in the episode 5, I think it is the first time you hear his actual Batman voice, and it's kind of like he's in combat, so it's brief. You're like, wait a minute. And you're wondering, is it because he's fighting and he's kind of out of breath or he's angry or whatnot?
Right.
But it's like, no, that's him. He's always gonna do that voice. And it seems so belabored. And I wonder how it got that far. Like someone should have heard it and said, whoa, let's not. But somehow it got through all the it's Warner Brothers. There's lots of channels that had to go through it. And they all heard it. And they all said, okay. They all signed off. It's like Jar Jar Binks. Everyone saw Jar Jar Binks in episode 1 that was on that production team, and everyone said, "Good job, George." How's that possible? I get it with George because they're like, "Well, we were afraid of him," but how are they afraid of Winston Duke's voice?
It was scary. It was indeed scary, so I could understand them being fearful. It's like, he's
a cannibal.
It's like, this man might like murder me and like growl.
Fair.
While doing it, that's scary enough.
It reminds me of like remember those old parody videos that were popular on YouTube of like, the Batman voice?
Exactly. It's not exactly like that.
I stabbed Talia with my dick.
Murder me.
Exactly like though. Yeah, it's like a parody or something. It's weird.
I just see his lip just like protruding out when he was talking the whole time.
Yes, like, bro, like what Batman sounded like Dogman. That's what that was. That was
I mean, Talia.
Like, did you like study Busta Rhymes and then like decide to do Batman? Like, I don't understand what in the Batman mythos made you decide to bring that energy to.
There's only one possible thing is if Winston Duke only read one Batman comic and it was All Stars Batman, where y'all remember that, the one that Frank Miller wrote and Jim Lee drew, like this is back in what year was that, 2015, Dev? where he's like I'm a motherfucking Batman. He's like I'm the goddamn Batman.
Is
He's
that
like screaming and
Batman
jumping.
Dark thing they were doing, where they're trying to do like rated M for mature comics?
Yeah, something like
label?
that.
Yeah.
I think it was something like that.
Like
It
showed
was
his
like
ass cheek or some shit, or they showed his
I
dick or
think
something
so.
like
He like backhands Robin a
Yeah.
couple times. He does yellow paint on himself fighting the Green Lantern. He's like, oh, it's like over the top, crazy Batman. If you read that comic book and you wanted to interpret how he would sound, maybe that would get you there. Maybe that would get you
Right.
there.
And that's one thing I'm noticing as we get more and more like superhero content out. You can tell who are actually like or actually fans of the content through their portrayals, because
Right.
it just seems like it fits and it seems genuine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get raw. It's like actually, I don't know if Margot Robbie was a huge comic fan before she portrayed Harley Quinn, but that fits. Or like Ryan Reynolds, you could tell he fucks with like nerd shit because it just fits right with that character of Deadpool specifically.
Right.
Like certain people just fit.
I can't say he's like he was just meant to be Deadpool. Like
He pretty much is Deadpool.
they have the same personality before they even
Kinda
like
is Deadpool.
exist. Like,
Wasn't he like pitching for that or campaigning for that role for
He
a
was
while?
campaigning for it though.
Yeah, for like a long time. So I'm like, he had to have like seen something or read something where he was like, I like that guy. I want to be that guy.
No, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is me. This is actually
I think
me.
that's what he figured. He found out what it was. He's like, yeah, I'm that person. But same with like Robert Downey Jr. I don't know how many Iron Man comics he read beforehand, but it's like that's pretty much most people's iteration of Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He's more Iron Man or Tony Stark than actually is in the comic books, to be honest.
Right.
So it's-
Like I hear that voice.
Yeah.
But even then, you don't have to be that perfect for it. Like even
No.
it's like some The Boys shit where like Homelander is probably a lot different than what I thought he would be from the comics if you read those.
Yeah.
But he just like he fits. I don't know. Winston Duke, like again, he was cool as Bruce Wayne, but he just doesn't fit for me specifically. And I like Winston Duke. This isn't me shitting on him. I like
agree.
Winston Duke as an actor. I've seen him. in
No,
other
you're 100% right, Dev. That's the thing. There's a difference between a good actor and the right actor. Believe it or not, Robert Pattinson was the right choice for what they're going for with that Batman. He was the right choice. It's not to say that there's which one's a better actor, which one's worse.
Because man,
Right.
he looks so natural doing
He
it.
looks natural in that position. You never feel like he's acting. You feel like, oh, that's just him. I think with Winston Duke as Bruce Wayne, hearing that voice, it felt forced as hell for him doing that voice. It did not feel anything natural. I don't know where we're pulling that from. It didn't feel right at all. So
He just channeling his inner Rough Rider. That's all it was.
Bruh, I was a singer for a minute, and you can hear when you sing and you hear people grading like that. That's your vocal cords literally grinding on one another. That can cause long-term damage. Like
Yeah.
Adele was doing that for a minute when she was singing, and she had to like her and Ariana Grande had to take breaks from their tours because they were grinding their vocal cords together so much.
and they still sound good.
And I know for a fact this man's throat was hurting by the end of the film.
It had to be.
Doing
It had to
multiple
be.
takes.
It had to be. There's no reality which it wasn't. I mean, that's why he only talks a little bit because it's like his voice is getting destroyed. Yeah. This is a massive side tangent. I apologize. Have y'all ever seen the movie The Fifth Element?
Is that the one with Bruce Willis where he's like,
It's got
with the
Bruce
kid?
Willis.
Yeah.
It's got Bruce Willis. It's got the girl from the Mila Jovovich from Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, I know Mila Jovovich.
So there's a part. Speaking of singing, you know that part,
alien?
Dev, where the blue alien, where she's singing. I didn't know. You may have known this, Dev. The part where she's singing those notes and she goes low and high so fast. I didn't know that was inhuman. You actually can't do that. They actually had to dub it because she's changing between extremely low notes to extreme high notes so fast that it's actually impossible to do.
Yeah.
And they actually had a person, a really, really talented musician that tried to do it. And it showed how close she got to it, but it still couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
So it's also, she talked about the labor it put on her vocal cords trying to do that. So it's interesting. I didn't know how labor intensive singing is on the vocal cords, just doing this type of thing.
It's like a muscle. You got to think about it. Like, let's say you had a 40-pound weight on the ground. That'd be like you just trying to like rip that 40-pound weight up as fast as you could, and almost tearing the muscle trying to do it because your body's meant to like do it in increments. It's like when people like increase like octaves and like notes, you're supposed to like go from part to part and kind of step up like some stairs, not jump from like one to the other because you'll hurt yourself that way.
Mad respect. It's another whole world that I'm not as familiar with. I respect musicians.
Which I still got to see that movie. I've seen like parts with my grandpa, but I fell asleep like a couple times on.
It's a weird ass one. It's a weird ass.
Fifth Element, yeah.
We'll add that to the list as far as Dev. We'll do a whole show.
That one I will rewatch. I will gladly rewatch Fifth Element.
anything horror like in that general realm, I'm down for sure.
It's not horror though. It's
not
it's
horror.
weird. It's like sci-fi comedy almost.
Yeah, it's for sure sci-fi comedy. And
Yeah, it's not horror.
Bruce Willis is in full Bruce Willis-ness.
Yeah, he's a straight man to a weird ass world.
Well, to stop going on tangents because I feel like we've made like 3 different videos on this show in particular, so I think we've like said all we've had to say on it. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys have any other closing thoughts about it?
We gotta rate it. We gotta rate it.
I always forget about the rating. I guess I'll start it off. I'll probably give it a solid like 7.5 out of 10.
This is for the whole series, not just for the last.
Yeah, this is for the whole
series.
For the whole thing in conclusion.
Okay.
Like maybe an 8 on a good day, but just 7.5 probably.
Okay. I'll go ahead and go next because I know we all know what else is gonna rank it. I'll go ahead and give it a. And listen, dude, because I did like Barbara Gordon so much, man, I gotta give it like a solid 7.5 as well, just because I enjoy listening to her and
Hey, before O goes, E, what do you think he's about to rate it? Let's guess for Otis.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's take over under. Man, Otis.
He'll give it a 4. I'm gonna say he'll give it a 4.
I'll go generous and he'll give it a 5. I'll say he'll give it a 5.
You're gonna like what are y'all? It is a 7. I give it a 7.
Really?
Yes.
Holy shit.
I give it a 7. Like
no one saw that.
Yeah.
I don't even I'll give one for the bit.
If you saw Otis giving this an actual full number, let us know.
It is not bad content, and I've said every episode I've said good things about it. I'm just mad at the fact that it's just boring rehashed content.
Right.
I'm
trolling.
I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate your support and hope for your continued support. This has been another episode of the Then and Now podcast, and we will see you guys.
Wait. Before we go, we got to get y'all heard my Winston Duke, Rough Rider's voice. We need to hear both of y'all's real quick.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Oh, ain't gonna do that shit. Are you gonna do that shit?
Yeah, I did. Swear to me.
Even
doing that like hurts.
It hurts. It's not even like
I cannot imagine what Winston Duke went through. Yeah, like that was not.
I haven't done this shit since middle school when I my voice first dropped and I was trying to just hit all the low notes I could.
Trying to press the ladies with puberty.
Where my dog's at? Where my dogs?
I was like, bro, like just cast him as Ace instead of Batman next time, bro.
Yeah, the Ace. They actually had Ace in here too.
He may have been Ace, low key.
They had Ace up in here.
If you guys want to clip that hashtag TNN. Let us do it. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Next video, who does a better job as Ace, Winston Duke or Kevin Hart?
I thought he was. Well, he is Ace, isn't he? I thought he was in Crypto.
Yes. No, Crypto is a.
No, Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, I kind of want to watch that. It just reminds me.
It looks okay. Looks okay.
Yeah. Let me end this before we go on another change.
Too late.
We'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Swear to me.
Swear to me. Houdini.
Oh, Winston Duke.